Single dad woke up to find the female CEO in his shirt. What she said left him frozen. Single dad woke up to find the female CEO in his shirt. What she said left him frozen. The title alone could never have prepared Daniel Harper for the reality he opened his eyes to that morning. Dawn light spilled softly across the cramped apartment, illuminating peeling paint, secondhand furniture, and a life stitched together by sacrifice. Daniel jolted awake on the couch, his heart hammering like it always did when sleep released him back into reality. For a brief moment, he thought he was still dreaming, because standing near the narrow window was a woman who clearly did not belong in this world of unpaid bills and worn-out hope. She was tall, calm, elegant, wrapped loosely in his old gray shirt, her hair falling over her shoulders as if she had stepped out of another life entirely. The shock froze him in place, breath caught somewhere between disbelief and fear, because he recognized her face instantly. She was the woman whose image filled business magazines, whose name carried power across boardrooms and headlines, the female CEO everyone called untouchable. And somehow, impossibly, she was here, in his apartment, wearing his shirt. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when lives collide unexpectedly, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Daniel's life had not always been this small, but it had always been heavy. 3 years earlier, the world he knew collapsed the night his wife never made it home. One accident, one phone call, and suddenly he was a single father with a 5-year-old daughter named Lily, a mountain of grief, and no map for how to survive both. He worked long shifts as a delivery driver, then came home to cook, clean, help with homework, and read bedtime stories even when exhaustion pressed against his eyelids like lead. Dreams were a luxury he could no longer afford. Every decision he made revolved around Lily, her safety, her laughter, her fragile sense of normal. The apartment was small, but it was theirs, filled with crayon drawings taped to the walls and a love that tried desperately to make up for everything else they lacked. The woman in his shirt was the last person Daniel ever expected to see there. Her name was Claire Whitmore, the CEO of Whitmore Technologies, a self-made empire built on innovation and ruthless precision. She was known for her discipline, her emotional distance, her refusal to let personal weakness interfere with success. The night before, Daniel's path had crossed with hers in a way neither of them could have planned. He had been making his final delivery when he found her collapsed near the curb, rain soaking her expensive coat, her face pale with pain. People had walked past her, assuming someone else would help. Daniel hadn't. He never could. He'd taken her to the hospital, waited for hours, missed work, and nearly lost a day's wages he couldn't spare. When the doctors insisted she shouldn't be alone, he'd offered his couch without fully understanding who she was. To him, she had just been another human being in need. Now, standing there in the quiet morning, Claire looked nothing like the powerful executive the world knew. She looked vulnerable, thoughtful, almost hesitant, as if she too was trying to understand how she had ended up here. Daniel noticed the way she studied the room, the cracked table, the cheap toys stacked neatly in the corner. Shame crept into his chest uninvited. This wasn't a place meant for someone like her. He felt exposed, like his entire struggle was laid bare under her gaze. He wondered what she must be thinking, waking up in the home of a man who barely kept his life together, a man who counted coins before grocery shopping and prayed every night that his daughter wouldn't notice how tired he was. The truth was, Daniel had been struggling long before that night. His job barely paid enough to cover rent, and Lily's school had recently sent another reminder about overdue fees. He smiled for his daughter, joked with her, promised things would get better, but inside, fear was a constant companion. He worried about what would happen if he got sick, if the car broke down, if one more unexpected expense tipped them over the edge. He carried that weight silently, because there was no one left to carry it with him. Kindness had become something he gave, not something he expected to receive. Claire's presence disrupted that carefully balanced suffering. She represented a world where money solved problems, where power opened doors, where people didn't lie awake at night calculating survival. And yet, as she stood there, wrapped in his shirt, there was no arrogance in her posture. There was something else, recognition. She had seen his daughter sleeping in the bedroom, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit, her face peaceful in a way only children manage. That sight had undone something inside Claire. It reminded her of the child she once was, the one she had buried under ambition after losing her own parents young. She had built her empire brick by brick, believing strength meant never needing anyone. But waking up in that apartment, surrounded by quiet love and honest struggle, made her question everything she thought she knew about success. Daniel finally moved, standing slowly as if sudden motion might shatter the moment. His mind raced with questions. How long would she stay? What would she say? Would this turn into a misunderstanding that cost him more than he could afford? He braced himself for embarrassment, for judgment, for the inevitable distance that people like her always kept from people like him. His heart pounded not with attraction, but with fear of being seen too clearly. What Claire said next changed everything. She spoke about gratitude, about how no one had helped her in years without expecting something in return. She spoke about waking up in a place that felt more like home than any penthouse ever had. Her words weren't dramatic or loud, they were quiet and heavy, carrying the weight of truth. She acknowledged his struggle without pity, his kindness without romanticizing it. And in that moment, Daniel felt frozen, not because of shock, but because someone had finally seen him, not as a failure, not as a burden, but as a man doing his best in impossible circumstances. The days that followed unfolded slowly, like a careful healing. Claire didn't sweep in with grand gestures or sudden charity. She stayed in touch, checked on Lily, asked about Daniel's life, listened more than she spoke. For the first time in years, Daniel allowed himself to hope cautiously. He didn't expect miracles, but he felt something shifting, something lighter in his chest. Claire, in turn, found herself drawn back into that small apartment, into the rhythm of a life built on love instead of power. She saw how Daniel read to his daughter every night, how he packed her lunch with handwritten notes, how he smiled even when exhaustion bent his shoulders. Daniel's challenges didn't disappear overnight. Bills still arrived, work was still demanding, and grief still lingered in quiet moments. But opportunities began to surface in unexpected ways. Claire offered guidance, mentorship, and eventually a real chance, to step into a better role within her company, not as charity, but because she believed in his integrity and work ethic. Accepting it terrified him. He feared failing, feared stepping into a world he didn't belong to. But Lily's hopeful eyes gave him courage. He realized that sometimes, accepting help was also an act of strength. As Daniel grew into his new role, he didn't lose himself. He remembered the man he was on that couch, the one who stopped to help a stranger in the rain. He carried that kindness forward, refusing to let success harden him. Claire changed too. She softened, allowing connection where there had once been only control. Their bond deepened naturally, not rushed, built on mutual respect and shared understanding rather than fantasy. They were two broken people learning that healing didn't mean erasing the past, but honoring it. Just before the ending of this story, take a moment to comment below. Share what this journey made you feel, or tell us about a moment when kindness changed your life in an unexpected way. Your words matter more than you know. In the end, Daniel often thought back to that morning, to the shock of waking up and seeing a woman from another world wearing his shirt. What froze him wasn't the surprise, it was the realization that his life, as small and difficult as it felt, held a value he had forgotten. He had something money couldn't buy: love, resilience, and the courage to keep going. And Claire had seen that when no one else had. Their story wasn't a fairy tale, it was a testament to the quiet power of compassion and the way one selfless act can rewrite destinies. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness still matters and that second chances can come from the most unexpected places, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive, reaching hearts that are still waiting to believe again.